So Top Gear, I call it best in bags. I used to spend a lot of time on the Ask Mr. Robot's website. So again, you're going to notice this is blank. All of your information that you changed initially in the quick sim is going to carry over. So it's kind of nice. You don't have to really worry about it too much, although I do try to do a sanity check every once in a while. So I'm going to paste in my information, and it's going to give me a lot of stuff. So it's going to give me all my current talents at the top. And then it's going to show you the ridiculous amount of gear that I carry around with me. Everything that I'm currently wearing is yellow with a check mark. And before we start getting into all this gear stuff, I actually want to go down to the bottom. This is a really neat feature that I really like about Raidbots. Right here, it's telling you if you run a simulation, these are the legendaries that you're going to have. We're not changing them out. But down here, there's a gem enchant section. What this does is, let's say you just got a piece of gear off of a boss. It's sitting in your bags, and you want to know if it's better or worse. But it has a gem slot. Certainly, you're not going to stick a gem in there before you decide whether it's good or not. If you pick a gem, net, cloak, ring, enchant, anything down here, it will fill that information in for you. So like I know up here, I have this ring that has a slot and I have nothing in it. So if I want to sim that ring with a gem in it, you can pick which kind of enchants, gems, whatever you want. Now, what I'm picking right now is for my class and spec. Again, make sure that you're in contact with your community, read some guides, find out, what people think you should be using in these particular slots. For me, mastery, agility, that sort of stuff. Now, there's one caveat. If you look at the gem list, there's no plus 200 gem. So you're kind of on your own for your one super great gem. But honestly, in the big scheme of things, 50 of a secondary stat is not going to make or break your best in bags. Now, at the bottom, there's actually an option for keep or replace. So keep is if you have some crazy stuff going on, which I do. I have some crit on this gem. It will keep the crit on that gem for me, and it will just add in the stuff if I am missing it. If I hit replace, it's going to override the crazy stuff that I'm doing to this ring, and it's going to replace it with this information for all of my gear. So why would you want to do that? If you are running a spec where you may need one secondary stat, or maybe you need the other and you're not sure, do I have enough? If I did all of mastery, is that better than doing all crit? So you can actually run a sim and say, okay, if I did all mastery, where am I? Okay, come back. If I did all crit, where am I? So it's a really neat, easy way to kind of regem and retool all of your gear at once. As far as set bonuses go, I typically handle managing my set bonuses on my own. But if you want to lock everything in to I have to have a 2-piece or I have to have the 4-piece, you are totally welcome to use those. But for me, I'm actually hoping someday I don't need a 2-piece, tier 19. So I just leave them on any. 2 legendaries. The only time you would uncheck this is if you don't have 2 legendaries. If you only have 1 or you have none, take this off. Otherwise, it's going to run the limit that you will always have 2 legendaries. So if that all makes sense, we're going to scroll back up here to my ridiculous amounts of gear. 9 times out of 10, I am using Raidbots because I got a piece of gear that I wasn't quite expecting from a raid. Maybe it Titan Forged, and I don't know. Is it good? Is it not good? So let's say I had an awesome night and I picked up 2 pieces of gear. Let's say I got some 930 bracers, and where is it? That I got a cool 940 ring. So I'm guessing based on eye level that they're probably better, but it's hard to say. So that's why we're here. Now, if you notice down here, 6 gear sets. What Raidbots is going to do is it's going to run 6 simulations for every option. So it's like, okay, I put on just the wrist. Okay, now I just put the ring on with this guy. Oh, now I just put the ring on with this guy. Then I did all of that when I also did the bracers. So you can see how when you're doing every iteration, every version that you can come up with the gear, these gear sets basically go up exponentially. They can really climb. Now, I do know for the basic free account, you're looking at like somewhere around a maximum of like 36 gear sets. I have gone up with my little $3 account. I've been able to go up to 54 gear sets, I believe, is the highest. If this green text turns red, that means you've exceeded your allotment of gear sets and you need to maybe set the bar a little lower for all the questions that you're trying to answer at once. So again, a reality check, it's saying, look, these are the legendaries that we're sticking with, and you say, awesome, thank you, and we're going to come down here and we're going to find top gear. So we're going to do some processing. I like that I can do a little reality check, make sure I didn't actually screw it up and end up in the AoE, which has happened before. So it's generated my report. And what it's telling me is it's saying, yes, your top gear is wearing those bracers and it is wearing this ring with that ring. So it wants me to swap out my butterfly ring for the braided silver ring, and it wants me to put on the new bracers. Now, if you come down here, it gives you the actual DPS numbers that you would have, projected for each iteration, each version. So I've got this ring with that ring, this ring, that ring, the bracers, just the bracer. This is where I was before, just wearing the bracers and not wearing anything else. So this actually was my baseline. So if I click that, the show relative difference will base everything off of that. So if I switch to the gear they're recommending, it's going to be a 0.5% increase on my DPS. Now, honestly, I usually don't show the relative difference. I actually look at the real, the DPS calculated numbers. My personal rule of thumb, because there's actually variation every time you run the simulation, you're going to get slightly different numbers. My general rule of thumb is if it's within 2,000 to 3,000 DPS, it's really the same. I am not good enough in the game to see a difference there, okay? Mathematically there's a difference, but when you start throwing boss mechanics and teammate predictability in there, I'm not going to see a difference. So I would actually say that the difference between the top gear, this ring configuration, and just wearing what I had, I'm going to say there's really no difference. Like, I'm not going to see a real difference in the meters and in the logs. Now, I think I would see a difference with just my thistle-proof thorn grabbers. And there's definitely a difference if I swap out my purple gem ring and keep the butterfly ring. Like, that's a legit difference. So I really don't want to do that. So if you end up running a Top Gear simulation and you have 3 options with rings and bracers, you're not really going to see it. But if you're doing this with trinkets or anything else that's got a proc or an on use or anything like that, it actually comes down to personal preference. I know a few weeks ago I ran a simulation where I ran 2 different talent options and they were basically the same. So I picked the one for the rotation that I enjoy doing. So you do still have a little bit of leeway. You do not have to pick the mathematically perfect one because really you're not going to see a difference in the game. So that's what I had for my first version of Top Gear. Now I want to do something a little bit more complex. So I did try out the ring and the gloves. It thinks that I should be wearing those. I mentioned before that I am still wearing 2 pieces of tier 19. I've got a cloak and I've got some gloves. At some point, I am hopeful that I will be able to drop those. And so what we're going to do is say, okay, have we hit that point? You know, I got this new cloak the other night. It's a 910. The stats aren't super great. Versatility is not great for me. So maybe this one is a good way to go. I have some really nice bracers with really good gloves with really good stats. So if I'm not going to wear this, I'm probably going to wear that. So those are the kind of questions that you ask yourself and then you answer them with the simulation. So I'm going to say, okay, is it time? Can I just wear the better gear that I've already gotten and ditch this tier 19 2-piece set bonus? So again, reality check. I'm wearing these legendaries. We're going to find Top Gear. So we're processing. The more gear sets that you have, the longer it'll take to process through them. And what it's telling me is there definitely is a big difference. I can't just throw on a cloak and gloves that I picked up. I'm going to get hit with a pretty decent. So if I do that, you know, I'm looking at almost a 3% decrease in my DPS. So I will be trudging along with this cloak and these crappy gloves for at least another little while until I can get something better. But that's another question that I think comes up a lot, at least what I see in the hunter community is, I still have these old things, when can I get rid of them? And this will tell you, you know, you've reached it or you haven't. So I've got one more. So back to Top Gear. Wait for it to bump. People want to know what legendaries they should be wearing. Now, this is assuming that you have these legendaries in your bags and you're choosing between the legendaries that you have. But I see it a lot. You know, the lists that you come across out there for best legendaries, it's more of like a general ranking, and a lot of times it depends on the gear that you would replace the legendary with, not necessarily the legendaries that you're currently wearing. So let's say right now I'm wearing Pride S and I'm wearing the belt. Now, just from personal experience, I know that this belt is not going anywhere. But, I mean, I wore Pride S like, 6 months ago or something. Is it time? Is it time for Pride S to move on? Does the bubble go? So, if I'm not going to wear Pride S, I'm going to wear this pendant. But if I'm not wearing Pride S, what would my other legendary possibilities be? Well, maybe I'll wear the wrist. It might be good. I know, again, from being in contact with my class and spec, that if you're wearing the wrists, you probably want to wear this trinket. Also, there's a new ring that came out with the last patch that might be good. So let's try that guy out. And let's see. So I'm already up to 12 gear sets. If I bump it up one more and I say, oh, look, I have some shiny boots. So it's not going to go up as exponentially when you're looking at just legendaries because you have to have 2 of them. You can't do every single mathematical version. You have to have 2, which means they have to be paired up. Now, as a reality check, again, it's saying, look, you're going to be wearing this belt. So, and let me show you what happened. I actually did this to myself the other night. Is I made all these cool changes, but I forgot to pick an option for Pride As, which I currently have on. And look, it's like, oh, you've made a lot of cool changes, but we're not going to do any of them because you haven't given us an option for Pride As, and we cannot read your mind. So I just use it as a quick reality check that I haven't messed anything up. Make sure that you have something selected instead of Pride As, or it won't let you take it off. So let's come down here. Let's find Top Gear. So I'm in a queue right now of not very many people, so that's good. And I checked with the Raidbots website. They said rarely, very, very rarely does the queue be more, is more than 1 or 2 minutes. And it as far as they could tell, it's never gone over 5 minutes. So, and there are some nights that are busier than others. So we'll go ahead and finish processing. And unfortunately, it's saying, you're gonna get like a 5,000 DPS decrease if you change out your trinkets, which I'm not crazy about doing. But if I want to use the ring, I'm gonna take a hit. Now, this is a simulation, so it is simulating procs. It's simulating on uses, all that kind of stuff. This one, this is the extra talent one that everybody got. So it's factoring that in. Now, one thing it is factoring in, though, to be honest, with the extra talent one, is I currently don't have Bestial Fury. Like if you see under Beastmaster, Bestial Fury, I'm not using Bestial Fury. But if I was, it's not going to pick my talent for me that would be different than Bestial Fury. So you have to be aware that if you are simming your legendary that gives you the extra talent, you need to not be currently using that talent. It's not gonna give you good results. I'm using a different talent, so that one is fine, but you may have to run a separate, you could still do the quick sim, but change your talents and try running it that way, or change them in game. So that's one thing to keep an eye out for the bonus talent legendary. So it's saying, okay, well, this is nice and all, but you have to keep the bubble. So I will keep the bubble.